everybody to our first data-driven video summit. My name is Jesús Herrero. I'm one of Jam co-founders. I'm based in Madrid, working at the office now, as you can see. Not able to travel, so this makes our lives a little bit more boring. So we need to think on creative ways to meet and chat and share our thoughts about the industry. And this is the idea of this event. So thank you very much, our honored guests, to join us today. What I would like to you guys do is first introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about your service. And then we can jump into today's topic, which is how we can turn data into actionable insights that will help improve your business. So maybe let's start with you, Miguel.
Sure. Hi, nice to be here. I'm Miguel Rodrigues. I'm the head of TV at Vodafone Group. And we basically have a TV platform that is available in 8 of our markets. And it has it's been a huge success over the last couple of years. And we're now expanding into a lot of new areas. And I think data is an extremely important part of our proposition to our customers. Okay,
Mr. Uki Choi.
Yes, Uki Choi. Coming from different galaxy, like you see the background. Well, based in Luxembourg, M7 is covering 8 different countries, starting from Western Europe, such as Netherlands, Belgium, up to Central Eastern Europe. We are mostly DTH. At the same time, we are serving OTT, as well as DVB-T and DVB, but IPTV as well. I mean, the topic that we've been invited is perfectly well matching, because the recent experience that we are exploring ourselves is somehow good example and practice how we have learned by working with a team, and what will be the benefit that we can do some actionable insight analyzing data. Nice to be here.
Thank you, Uki. Mark.
Hi, yeah, Mark Walker, MPP Global. MPP Global has a subscriber management and billing platform called eSuite, and we power some of the world's most successful OTT subscription services and physical subscription services as well.
Thank you. Gideon?
Hi, everyone. Nice to meet you. I'm Gideon Giloba. I'm from Kaltura. Kaltura is the leading cloud TV platform. We provide cloud TV services to telecom companies like Vodafone, broadcasters around the world with over 100 million monthly active users on the platform, and great partners of Jump, and very excited to be here today to talk to you about how data and cloud TV are going to work together.
Thank you, Gideon. Jerónimo.
Hello, everybody. I'm Jerónimo Macanás. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Jump. We are a cloud data platform that turns data into the knowledge you need for optimizing your media and entertainment business. And I'm very happy to be with these rock and roll stars of the video, all of them partners and customers. So very excited about the discussion.
Great. So thank you all for being here. So I understand we are all agreed that data is key for the success of pay TV nowadays. And that's no new story, but it's really interesting to know your points of view and how each of you are taking advantage of data, what KPIs are you measuring. All these topics will be key questions of today. So I would like to maybe start with some questions. Of course, the idea is to make this interactive. So anyone of you that can add a new point of view or anything to another speaker would be great to know. So let's start with the first question. Let's say to Miguel. Okay, so Miguel, Vodafone TV, doing great. that we know. So what do you consider a must to deliver a better TV offering?
Yeah, I think when you look at your offering on TV, you usually know what you're selling. So that's something that you as a marketing team and with your BI teams, you will always know how much you're selling. But there's always a gap between what you're selling and effectively what your customer is using. And this gap is something that it's not easily for BI teams to understand unless you have the right data. So one of the key concerns that we always look for when we're talking about data is what effectively are our customers doing? Are they active in the platform? Are they actually using the content that you have available for them? And I think this is something that ends up being really important for the business, because it allows you to then segment your customers. You know, do you have a customer that only watches linear content? Or is that customer, for example, a series lover? Or is he completely inactive in the platform? And only if you know what type of customers you have, can you then optimize the service for them, so that you kind of get this customer obsession in making sure that you get the best deal in the best platform, and the best content for those users. So I think this is really important for us, is knowing the activity of the customer, and how active he is in the platform, in the content he's watching. I think when you think about this, I think there's also this notion of nowadays, with the aggregation of a lot of OTT providers, people start spending a lot more time within apps in your platform. And if data is important, and if knowing where your customer is important, what he's doing, then it doesn't make a lot of sense that there are these black holes where you don't know what happens when the user goes there. So I think it's important that in the future, and as we evolve our understanding of what the user does and how we improve that experience, that we also get visibility over what's happening in these OTT apps, so that you don't end up having silos, but that you have a good overall view of what your customer does throughout the whole journey. And I do believe that that will be critical and crucial for anyone to make a difference in understanding their customers. I think they will need to understand what happens in your own platform, in the content you have, but also in the content that exists inside the OTT players, and what the user and how long he stays there and what effectively he does. Only understanding these two parts will you have a very good end-to-end view of exactly what your customers are doing, I believe.
Yeah, sure. It makes all sense. We also are aware that there's a lot of challenges in the industry, and also working with you guys, we know the challenges a little bit, but I would like Uki to tell us a little bit about what challenges are you facing. Tell us just a few, not all of them, Uki, okay? By gathering data, okay? By gathering, what is the hardest challenge of collecting data for you?
Well, probably the question given for me, there are certain purpose behind why Jesús together with Jerónimo asking this particular question for us. Well, again, as head of business intelligence and product for M7, as soon as landing this organization, a challenge is just overwhelming me a lot. But let me formulate the challenge that I have looked after, and where we are and where are we going to do. First of all, and when it comes to the collecting data, I want to classify what is the source of data. For instance, is it the data that we are circulating internally? Or is it data that we are affiliating with some external party and external solution and so on and so forth? That is one part. And the other part is, what are the characteristics of this data? Is it somehow the data that we are measuring for business assessment, like attributed, calculated, and so on and so forth? Or is it a data for just purely for operational as a transactional data? So by putting where it's coming from, together with characteristic of the data, we try to, first of all, improve our internal data structure a lot to fit well this industry trend. Because M7 have been growing our business by doing a lot M&A. Even in recent year, we made a new acquisition, so-called the DTH part of UPC last year's time. Therefore, every single brand that we have been doing M&A, the way the data structure, the way data been formulated, the way data been proceeded based on a storing procedure, is not nearly, there's no standard that we can apply. Therefore, the biggest challenge that we try to get over, how to structure the data based on new data known and business requirement. That was the first step. Once those standardization or normalization being completed, we are moving into the external data. for instance, when external data, there are tons of different sources, but without touching every single data, we have been focusing on what is the data for domain knowledge, such as Google Analytics, Adobe Analytics. Then what is kind of customer experience by doing a lot tagging, like Firebase, Google Tag Manager, and so on and so forth. And what are the tools that we can directly make some action based on BI platform, such as engagement. And by putting domain knowledge, user experience, to get it engagement tool, we try to match those data into our social demographic together with behavioral data. So putting all this internal data cleansing, then making proper assessment and building some interface among different systems, we were able to start collecting data and storing data into the data lake, and we are running the BI. That is the experience that I'm doing last 12 months time. It's still far way to go, but moving quite fast, and
yes.
Groups of management are quite happy.
Yes, totally. The journey has started, like we say.
That's correct.
Yeah, I understand that having such challenges is good to work with partners, and the idea, I guess you all know Kaltura, this well-known vendor in the industry for a long time. I would like to know your opinion, Gideon, on which do you think are the key elements for the transformation of video services in a data-driven entertainment, to convert into data-driven entertainment experiences. What do you think? Give us your opinion there.
Sure, sure. So I think I want to try and talk about it a little bit from the consumer point of view, because I think in many ways we talk about what data could do for the marketing team, of course, and the operator. But I want to actually start by talking a little bit about what data could do for the consumer. And if you think about it, our industry has gone through a revolution over the last 5 years. You know, 5 years ago, we had the vision that sometimes pay TV and OTT will come together, will form this thing called cloud TV, and actually a thing that a capability or a type of service that large companies like Vodafone and others are using that brought a lot of benefits to consumers, right? So cloud TV meant that consumers got more personalization, they got content on more devices, they got apps like Netflix and others inside their experience. And that is all great. And that was the benefit of the move to cloud TV. The way we look at it forward from the consumer point of view is that the next big step is something we call cognitive TV, which is the combination of cloud TV and data. And for the consumer, that means a much smarter, but at the same time, simpler service. Just to give you some examples and ideas and directions we're thinking about, right? So more natural UI. So more ability to talk to your TV system with natural language processing and AI services, and for your system maybe to talk back to you, okay? Only screen capabilities, so the ability of devices to be aware of each other and actually allow you to create interesting navigation on your mobile device while watching on the main screen. More adaptive advertising that is not only targeted, but is changing, the ad payload is changing depending on the content and the format. So, but bottom line, there is a lot of capabilities from the experience point of view that data will bring into play. And again, we like to call that cognitive TV. I think that, of course, for that to happen, just to summarize, data cannot be an afterthought. Data needs to be a pre-consideration when you're building the system. You need to have a single infrastructure in order to do this transformation, a single data lake infrastructure. You need to be able to integrate multiple types of data. It's not, you know, you want acquisition data, you want internal platform data. We heard Uki talk about that. So I think these are some of the key aspects of the consumer experience and also the technology that you need around that.
Thank you, Gideon. Really good point of view, taking it from the user, always the user view, which give us the good visibility. I have a question also for Mark. I mean, from your standpoint of view also, which is the starting point to create a data-driven user TV service?
Yeah, it's actually really, really interesting. And I think Gideon teed me up there just slightly. So we've seen many different starting points adopted by MPP Global clients as a result of working with them on their data initiatives. And as a result, I kind of formulated a belief that there are two elements to consider at the start of creating a data-driven user TV service. And I believe those to be, first of all, you've got to define your goals, your objectives, and the KPIs being implemented or tracked. And then you understand the abilities and the technologies required to capture, store, manipulate, and visualize that data. And it does seem reasonable that having defined goals and objectives and KPIs is required more often than not, that they do exist. However, if you are aiming to be data-driven, there's a requirement to ensure that your goals and objectives, that they're built in line with the thought process of being data-driven. They're based around utilizing data and can be monitored and measured using that data. They can be achieved through and measured against data. They identify the type of data required to be used to track and validate success. You know, an example could be that you have a goal that in NORAM you want to increase your subscriber retention by 15%, and the objective is to eliminate system cancellation or churn. So the KPI is subscriber number saved who would have churned through an automatic subscription cancellation. And with this example, the goal, the objective, the KPI, they're built using data in mind, and they can be achieved using data as well, and they can be measured. And the type of data also is required. It's payment data, specifically payment transaction success data. And now you've got a direction on where you can go to get that data, or who can help you get it and help you understand how it can be captured and stored. So the second element is more complex, but without being able to appropriately capture and store, manipulate your data, you'll struggle to create an effective data-driven TV service. So I think that you need to ensure that you've got your goals and your objectives and your KPIs met, and then you can go into understanding how you're going to capture that data, understanding what technologies are required. You know, how complex is it to capture the data? Where does it come from? Then you're moving on to storage again. What technologies are needed to store that data? Where can it be stored? How long for? What format? What controls? And then manipulation. What technologies do you need to be able to manipulate that data? How often do you update it? And how do you know the manipulation model is accurate? And then final, the visualization. You know, again, technology, what's needed? What formats does the tool need to be in? And I speak to this because I'm actually going through it myself right now. You know, we've got a new data initiative, and I'm asking these questions myself at this moment in time. And once you've understood and addressed each point, you're then in a position to start using data to drive your TV service.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Yes, definitely. There's one question I want to ask Jerónimo. Because listening to the audience, you can tell there's many challenges in the industry to deal with data, becoming data-driven and deal with data. So how do you think, or what is the biggest value do you think Jump can bring to a potential pay TV providers or our actual clients? Which is the biggest value you think Jump brings to the clients?
Yeah, I think we as a company provide a big value that anyway, with Jump or without Jump, you need to really address as a challenge, right? And I will divide it in two groups. One is it's more related with this technology space and all the challenges around. You need to, for really becoming a, let's say, data-driven TV business, you definitely need to design, plan, and execute about that strategy. So you need to look at, first of all, what is the data that you want to manage? And that relates directly with business. What is the business you are driving, and which are the key KPIs and the key analysis that are going to give you the tools you need to make an impact on your business. So once you know that, then you need to look internally and say, hey, do we have the data sources I need? Yes, no, is there a gap? How should I fill this gap? And then once you have realized that and you create a plan for fixing that gap that usually happens, then is when the party starts. Then you need, of course, to make data ingestion. You need to make sure that you can do that harmonization of the data. And last, but for me, the most important part, how do you relate the different data sources that comes from different parts of your technology ecosystem to really turn this data into knowledge or into the insights that you really need to make an impact on your business. And then on the business side, that is assuming that you have all of this, that is very challenging and takes a lot of time and effort. And you can do the build versus buy analysis, whatever, but can be avoided. You need to really have your infrastructure for data. Then is when it comes, well, what is important for managing business with a data-driven perspective. And then I will highlight key elements of any TV video business service. Some of them you guys have already mentioned it. But I will say acquisition is very important, not just how many new subscribers I have, but for example, things like which acquisition channels are the most relevant based on my strategy. Do I want to have customers with high customer lifetime value? Or basically now I need to focus on conversion rates or in churn rates. You can invest on the different acquisition channels depending on these goals, for example, in acquisition phase. Then retention. Well, of course, you need a retention card. You need to understand a churn. You need to be able to anticipate to the potential churners, understanding why these people is about to churn, so you can focus your actions in there. Then monetization, of course, you need to track about your ARPUs, you need to track customer lifetime value, you need to track all these things. User experience, very important. What is the health of your registration path, for example, or your payment paths, or time to play, that nowadays is crucial. Time to play path in video service. And then personalization. How can I make the video service as closest to the end user interest, right? How can I really engage as much these people that even if they are not looking specifically for something to watch, they are gonna find something to watch because I'm gonna put in front of them something that really attracts their interest. So of course, all these metrics comes with a lot of more horizontal analysis like demographics of the different product types for OTT or IPTV or DTH or commercial packages, different subscription packages, all of that. But just to give you an example of these two, let's say, core components of the data-driven strategy. One is the tech stack and something that you really cannot avoid, but also the business, on the business side, the different things that you need to look at as minimum for really driving your business.
Okay, thank you, Jero. Going back to Miguel, because we're talking about acquiring clients and also maintaining them. And that's, I think, kind of everybody talks about that, and we know that that's key. But from your point of view, which are the KPIs, the most relevant KPIs for you, if you have to say, let's say three KPIs that you look every day and it's like your daily goal, which will they be?
I think obviously you want a growing base, so that's obvious first step is understanding if your business is growing, and having a growing base is I would say the first metric when you look there. But a bit more than that, you need to see that from a customer perspective, what is the objective of your business? And your business in the end is to tell stories, good content stories, and people want to access those good content stories. And if you believe that, then you also need to look at your content engagement. So what are people watching, but also how people discover content. So I think these three steps, so growing base, content engagement, and how easy it is to discover new content are really sort of the three things that you kind of take the pulse to your service. I think to that sense, if the customer is happy with finding content in your platform. And if you can make him discover new content that he wouldn't otherwise, then in the end, that's what will raise your NPS and what will make that customer super happy with the service and then tell his friends about the same service, because he's finding new things in the platform that maybe another user also had the same capabilities, but he doesn't find it because he doesn't know it exists. So I think these are really the core aspects of understanding the TV business and how healthy it is. Obviously the growing base, paying attention to your churn, making sure you have a good content engagement, and then discovering content. How high is this rate at which users discover new content? I would say those are the primary things for me, at least on the TV business.
Yeah, so I would say like personalization of content and engagement of the users will be like one of the metrics that are really relevant. Going back to Uki, I mean, for us, it's also interesting to know what actions are you doing with when you analyze the data and you analyze the KPIs? What kind of actions, promotions, what is working for you? What are you doing with this data?
Well, I mean, all the topic being addressed by all participants really encouraging me and exhibiting the same consideration that we are taking. I mean, to answer your question, Jesús, because the data is not only for, let's say, going forward, different work, we are keep on focusing engagement in, customer base increase together with, improving our performance back and forth. However, from our point of view, the way how we try to transform the data into the actionable level, we try to build kind of business assessment into BI level for management and groups of stakeholders can make a quick decision. Just make the decision and take an action immediately. That is one angle, try to build and address much in-depth business analysis in BI level as real-time as possible. That is one angle. On the other angle, what we are somehow underestimating, the value that we have to see, the transactional data. What does mean by transactional data? That we are managing kind of our daily operations, such as logistics, such as customer care, customer service, and so on and so forth. Those are the data that we are kind of interfacing with our existing customer base. So for us, we are heavily working for integrating those transactional data into our data platform to match what is the reason for early churn, what is any indicator that we can analyze. Customer are churning due to some voluntary reason or non-voluntary reason. That is the way how we try to enhance our existing data platform, not only acquisition and growing our business, but also securing our customer base are happy with the provision that we are doing in terms of their service.
Thank you, Uki. So I think, go ahead.
If I may just add one thing, which I think going back to what both Miguel and Uki were saying, I think another aspect that is sometimes ignored is even if you went through all the process that we just discussed and you built your data set and you know what you're tracking, you have to make sure that you have a data-friendly platform that you can actually take actions with. So things that we are at least thinking about are, do you have the ability to run real-time experiments? Do you have the campaign management capabilities in the platform that lets you use your app, which is your greatest asset, in order to do promotions? Do you have the right personalization and recommendations? Do you have the audience segmentation? So I think that's like the next set of questions, which is, if I have a great set of data, how can I act on it and act on it quickly and also do the feedback loop? Because obviously that's what's going to lead to business outcomes.
Thank you, Gideon. Yes, I think we are coming to the end of the session. I think I have a last question for every one of the panelists, and I will like to see your point of view around what aspects do you think of how people is interacting with TV is going to change more in the coming future, let's say in the near future. And so each of you is going to, let's say 1 minute each. So let's start with Miguel.
Sure. So I think the future of this in TV will inevitably be around aggregation. And I think if you connect this with data, it's unavoidable that you will need to understand what is happening in your user as he goes through everything during his consumption, not just your platform, not just what he does in your devices and mobile phones, but also in other OTT apps and other content partners. So I do believe that the future will be very relevant around who aggregates content and what you can do about the knowledge that you collect from that aggregation. That's my view.
Okay, perfect. What about Uki? You're on mute.
Okay, I totally agree with what Miguel stated. I mean, only one or two remarks that I can add up on top of his statement is not only knowing customer better by providing the power of aggregation in content perspective, user experience perspective, and so on and so forth, but overall the business funnel, where we take all the inflow with regard to customer and how they are using our service during their lifetime, and what are the kind of hidden difficulty or remaining discomfort, how to reduce those complex experience will really matter in overall business management perspective. So those business management perspective has to be measured per customer level for us to know better our customer. That is kind of the experience that we have to focus on in the future by using the data.
Okay, thank you, Uki. What about Mark?
Yeah, I think we're all circling around the same thing here. So yeah, data used to drive personalization and individual user experience will be an aspect impacted by data. I mean, I've seen technologies that can consume every piece of metadata, and it can use that to push the user through a journey designed specifically for them, and do so across device and every channel, and furthermore enable just vast amounts of testing to get to that point where not only have you been able to create cohorts or segments of individual users, but you know that when somebody gets into that segment, you know exactly what action to take. I mean, I've heard some great stories with using data. For example, there was a service that identified a user was watching football one week and the Disney Channel the next. Disney football, and it turns out that the user had his children every other week, so they bundled the package together, and it saved him money.
That's a good case. What about you, Gideon?
I think I touched on it a little bit at the beginning. I think that if I have to summarize, what I hope will happen as a consumer is that TV will get even more simpler than it is right now. I fully agree with Miguel that we're going into the world of aggregation because people like the convenience of aggregation. People like someone to basically serve everything they need in one easy place. But TV, as we know it today, is still not simple enough. You still have to browse a lot of content rails and menus to find the content that you like sometimes. TV, doesn't exactly predict what you want to do right now, and sometimes, as just mentioned by Mark, it's quite easy to predict. So what I hope data will bring to the TV experience of tomorrow is a much simpler experience for the user, much more intuitive, hassle-free, menu-free, complex remote control-free, and hopefully we'll all watch more TV, and so everybody on this panel will be very happy.
We'll go back to black box showing us what we have to see, like all TV, but understanding the behavior we have every day. Just a funny thing. How about Jerónimo? What do you think?
Well, I think this is going to be many aspects of data impacting people's interactions. We will probably be surprised in some years from now about what is the TV experience going to look like. So, but if I need to bet on something, I agree. It would be search, discovery, and personalization. And when I mention this, it's not just about, as some of you have said, just content ribbons in front of a user experience. It's about many other things that I'm still thinking that today, state of the art is not yet there. And there is a lot of room for improvement. So that's what I think personalization is going to have a huge impact. It's not just because of the possibilities, It's also about the state of the art today, that in my opinion is low development. So things like voice suggestion, integrated social media recommendations, personalized TV channels, and many other aspects that really are not fully developed yet, that will become, once we will be there, a real personalized TV experience that I think will change TV as we know it. And I do agree with Gidi, probably in a more simplified way, but at the same time, in a much smarter way at the same time. So I think that would be my bet. Who knows? But that would be my bet.
Yes, nobody knows. We have a little bit of time, so I would like to ask you a question again, maybe one each, because I think it's interesting for the audience to understand what you have seen, what trends you have seen since the COVID started. I know this is a already, everybody asks this question, but I think it's really interesting to see the different points of view by countries or by brands, pay TV, OTT services. What is your view? What are your experiences, Miguel, on your side during the COVID?
I think you've seen that in a lot of countries when the lockdown happened, effectively, not a lot of people think about this, but stores effectively closed. So there is no way to sell. And it's not like you're going to sell through the phone only and that's going to help you. So we've seen that sales actually stopped, and this happened, I guess, with all operators a bit throughout the world. But as we came out of the quarantine, that now there's a catch-up effect, because everyone that either wanted to churn or wanted to buy something, then they were waiting for this kind of movement. And you're now seeing that coming back again. And I think it shows how important the data is for you, because at least you can now be prepared and you know exactly either how you can change or prevent or predict churn, or what you can do to improve the service to try to capture more users and make the ones you have happier. So I think that's the kind of movement we're seeing, and I would assume this is a similar movement in all other operators that have, because we've seen this in all the countries.
Yeah. What about you, Uki? Have you seen any trends on consumption in different devices, like any changes in this kind of attitude?
Well, I think certainly yes. Thanks to the effort that we have been investing a lot, all this setup box lease approach that we started from 2009-10 onward. So we are not delivering CPE for end user to use at a terminal many years ago. So we try to reduce our capex as much as possible. Therefore, we have shifted our strategic focus in terms of terminal point of view into smart TV. So due to the breakout, the COVID and lockdown started, the usage when it comes to smart TV just sparking up tremendously. And that was the main source of our new acquisition generated last few months' time. And we become more and more convinced the way that we have to focus strategic investment somehow has to be coupled with set-top box list together with device-free approach. If we have to choose out of different device form factor, we are quite convinced to go for smart TV by overriding their technical evolution. That is somehow the decision made and focus that we are currently making.
Let me add something on top of this, Jesús. Well, you know perfectly, we conducted an internal study at Jump. And while we see these trends that you guys are seeing, one interesting thing as well, we saw more or less like 130% increase in overall consumption, right? But specifically on smart TVs, the average consumption growth, it was 250. So it was really impressive how smart TVs were like growing like crazy during this the first half of the year. But we don't know if this is something that is gonna, stay with us at that level. But even if they drop off a bit, I think the effect of people discovering that they can stream content in other devices is here to stay. And probably that's a different audience segment that we need to look at more carefully, because it's not the traditional TV user or OTT user that we know. It's kind of a, not nerd, but kind of a advanced user. This is people that during this first semester of the year, they were not streaming maybe in the past, especially through smart TVs, and now they are doing it. So that's something interesting that probably we will see moving forward in the coming months, how this behavior evolves.
Yeah. How about you, Mark? Have you seen any trends in your clients?
Yeah, absolutely. We got a different mix of clients. So, you know, we have some unfortunate sport-based clients who are all about acquisition now because they had a mass churn drop-off. So we're working with them to understand how they can acquire these customers and then actually implement business models that can possibly cope with this potential fluctuation that might happen during the year and into next year. And then on the other side, exactly what was discussed, a lot of clients saw mass surge in subscriber numbers, and it's all about give me data so that we can understand how we can retain our customers. And because we've got clients across OTT, across publishing, each one's very, very different. So we're actually presenting churn models to each one that's very, very different to the other based on their users and the industry that they're in.
Thank you, Mark. And what about you, Gideon?
Yeah, I mean, I think over a decade ago, a few folks in Israel that founded Kaltura said, well, one day video will move from broadcast to IP, from on-prem to the cloud, from hardware to software, and people looked at them and said, well, yeah, maybe. I think the last period, which has been terrible from a health perspective, from an employment perspective, for many, many people around the world, proved one thing, that this is no longer like a trend, or this is the reality.
Yeah.
Video has shifted. Of course, being a cloud video company that serves multiple segments, not only media and entertainment, but also education, enterprise, for communication, collaboration, and so on, we are seeing a huge surge in the consumption of videos across all of these verticals, and new verticals opening, like virtual events that was like, okay, a nice to have thing has suddenly become a major thing. On the TV itself, we're also seeing some consumption behavior patterns that are expected, like suddenly you would see prime time at 10 a.m. in the morning in Europe because a lot of people were at home and mostly kids content, right? So all of these things are changing, but I think the key takeaway is, you know, streaming is here to stay, and it's becoming the mass distribution and consumption mechanism.
Thank you, Gideon. Well, we're coming to the end of the session. It was really interesting. I enjoyed this session a lot. Thank you very much for your time. Hopefully next time we will see each other physically and have a little beer after the chat. But nowadays, this is what we have to do. So thank you very much, and talk to you soon.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.